seems like people really love the game and they continue to grow, right? It's now 700,000.
So hold on. 700,000 daily active users today. What was Axie at its peak?
Around 2.8 mil.
No one is talking about that.
Ronin is actually the #2 most used blockchain right now. More people are using Ronin on a daily basis than Solana. This is verified by Token Terminal. Ronin is actually almost 4x the number of
That's crazy.
blockchain addresses as base right now.
Like that's
I'm here to bring the good news, right? Like
that's
I felt
crazy.
like this was a conversation that needed to happen.
It's time to talk about gaming. Not that I'm sick of meme coins, but I think that a lot of people are wondering, like, what is going to be the next trend I can be early to, or just when does money start flowing into the sectors that always do well during crypto bull runs? And crypto gaming is kind of at the front of that. And Jihoz, I was talking to Anil. It sounds like you were hanging out with him a little bit ago. He was on a recent episode. I'm sitting here wondering, like, you created the most successful game of crypto last cycle, Axie Infinity, right? We have Bitcoin at $70,000, and Axie Infinity last cycle did 1,000x. We had games at $10 billion valuations. How do we not have the next Axie Infinity yet? Like, why is there not a big crypto game hitting mainstream yet?
It's early in the cycle, man. Even with Axie, right? Like, it didn't capture the attention of the entire space until a little bit, right? Like towards maybe the middle of the cycle, but things are percolating. So yeah, I'm here to inform. I'm here to catch you guys up. There is a lot of really interesting stuff happening in the space, but it is something that you have to kind of be monitoring, right? It's a little bit more work. But yeah, happy to chat through what's going on.
It's just one of those things you have to start thinking through, I think, because if you're trying to pick, what's going to be the next 1,000x game, if you're trying to think through that, it's not like a meme coin. Like we were joking, you can't just pull up Deck Screener and say, is Ansem talking about this? Is there a big KOL that, is this a good meme? Do I like the picture? Like you actually have to play the game. I'm kind of curious, like, you kind of pioneered this play to earn, right? That was the big, and so many games popped up last cycle after Axie Infinity. You had Step In, you had these other games that all tried this play to earn. Crypto games are always going to have money involved, but are they all going to be this play to earn? I want to attack it from this. Like, what does the next big crypto game look like? Does it have to be a play to earn like you created, or what are your thoughts on play to earn as we're in this new cycle?
First of all of crypto is play to earn, whether it goes from Bitcoin mining, right? Like meme coin adventures, right? This is all, right? People are obviously, the tech is interesting and has a chance to create a lot of economic freedom throughout the world. But let's be honest, this is the industry that we're in. This is the behavior. This is also what games are going to have to contend with, right? So there will be an element of play to earn, right? We might call it different things: play to airdrop, play to mint. These are some of like the trends that have been popping up. But at the end of the day, right, I think there will be some element of play to earn. There will be some element of aligning incentives with tokens. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing honor, you're not doing justice to the industry that we're in, right? Like crypto games, we make games where, right, there are economic opportunities attached to these games. If that's not how we're building these games, like let's just go back and make normal games, right?
I'm glad you said that. I've always viewed crypto as the game. Like I tweeted that a little bit ago. I said, what's the next big crypto game? And some guy got super mad. He said, that doesn't look like a game. Like he sent me this thing that looks like the traditional video game. And I kind of thought, I was like, we're all playing the game. Like Twitter is kind of our pre-game lobby. Some people go play meme coins. That's their game. Some people play NFTs. It's all a game in a sense. I like that you said it's all play to earn. I hadn't really considered that.
For sure. I mean, so what we're seeing, right, are new models that are coming up. Rapid experimentation carried out by teams like Pixels, a team that's like super blowing up right now, right? So new ways of distributing tokens to the right people, right? Like we think about it as like who you reward and what you reward them for. That's actually what creates culture. That's what creates attention, right? We're all fighting for attention at the end of the day. There have been a lot of really interesting experiments, right? Like where, there's play to airdrop, right? A lot of this is kind of pioneered or taken from ideas like Blast, right? Or Blur, right? So play to airdrop, that's like a new trend, right? Where you basically, we'll have some campaign, right? Where it's like, okay, there'll be a leaderboard. You're farming points, right? You're farming points, and then there will be some airdrop of tokens, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, Pixels did a play to airdrop campaign that really blew up. I think it was the largest ever. They're currently sitting at 840,000 daily active users. they're able to use that momentum, right, to catalyze a Binance launch pool or Binance Launchpad listing. So there are teams that are executing, experimenting, and getting traction, getting users. It's just I think we're still early, right? It's part of that cycle where it's still the insiders, right, or the people who know about Web3 gaming, who live and breathe it, who kind of know what's going on, who know what's happening in the industry, hasn't really broken out of that echo chamber. It's one of the reasons that I wanted to come and chat with you.
Why do you think that play to earn for games specifically got villainized so much? Like Axie Infinity, the way the cycle that it went through was no different really than any other token last cycle, right? We had every coin went up, and macro caused some issues. Sam Bankman-Fried caused some issues. Bitcoin went down, ETH went down, gaming tokens went down, DeFi went down. But there was, when I was kind of, as we think back and we look at crypto gaming from last cycle, mainstream media and traditional gamers, they like villainized games specifically in crypto and said, these are Ponzi's, this play to earn model is predatory, all these things. Why is that? Like, why do games get hurt if it's all play to earn? Because I agree with you on that point.
Games were a new thing last cycle. So it was just that it had never been called a Ponzi before, right? So it was the new thing to call a Ponzi in crypto. Bitcoin, they've been calling that a Ponzi since 2011, right? Yeah. DeFi, they were calling a Ponzi back in 2019, 2020, right? Gaming was the epicenter of retail onboarding in the last cycle. And I think for many of them posed a threat, for many it posed something easy to poke fun at. Hey, these games look simple. Hey, it doesn't make sense how people could actually make money, right? It just seemed like maybe a punching bag for the media and for people that were crypto skeptics. Gamers are also super woke these days.
It's so
gamers
bad,
are super woke, and they basically are against crypto. There are many theories for why mainstream gamers are really against crypto. I think gamers really understand and have known about crypto. So it's gamers are kind of like the mid-curve. Trad gamers are literally mid-curve individuals, many of them. And it's they're maybe their really stupid friends made a lot of money and they feel jealousy, right? So I think there are a lot of when you think about the psyche of the modern trad gamer, I think there are a lot of reasons that they're against Web3 gaming, crypto gaming, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, Web3 gaming was, right? I think it was just the easiest thing for people to go up against last cycle. It was also super new. There was a lot of hype around it. And yeah, I think you framed it well, right? Everything in crypto went down during the bear market.
Right.
And that's how it works. That's how crypto works. That's actually good, right? So we onboarded millions of people. Many of them left, and now many of them are back. Just like what happens with the rest. This was the first cycle where crypto gaming was part of the conversation, right? So people didn't know whether people would come back. I'm here to present the data to show that it's actually happening. It's basically the same cyclical, right, ebb and flow that happens in the rest of the industry.
Gosh, saying that gamers are kind of woke and that's why they were mad, it also just makes me realize that gamers are probably the way they viewed crypto games as being a way where every player has a chance to kind of earn some money, or it spreads, it kind of democratizes how the game and the ecosystem can pay out certain players or who gets rewarded. I almost view that the same way that bankers have animosity towards Bitcoin, where it's the first system that kind of threatens their chokehold on the system of, hey, we're not really in control of that. We don't like that. Versus you look at traditional games, the only people that really make money is the top 0.01%, right? It's 100 people that have all these viewers on Twitch. Every other gamer just spends all their time, makes no money. Crypto games kind of flip that, and maybe that played a role. I think it has to play some role.
Whenever there's a paradigm disruption, there are going to be people who are against it. There's going to be a lobby, right? There's going to be you recently saw the Hearthstone devs, right, make public comments against Parallel, right? So there's this lobby, there's this kind of mind virus that is infecting a lot of these gamers. I think also probably that's a vocal, loud minority. And yeah, I think there are a lot of trad gamers that will eventually, right, be receptive to this. And I think right now, right, the main audience are people who crypto trade. There are a lot of crypto traders. There are a lot of people who are into crypto. right? It's like almost half the world are gamers, right? So I think right now that is the core and target audience. Though that audience plus their friends, their family, right? Their kind of immediate circle. I think that's the core demographic to target right now. Eventually, yeah, this will spread to a much larger audience.
That's so true. All right, before we get into some of the most exciting experiments this cycle, kind of what teams are doing differently, what you're seeing working, or are they doing more airdrop to earn? Are they doing the points? Is it more kind of just a replica and iteration of Axie's play to earn? Before we talk about that, you have such a unique perspective of kind of pioneer being, helping guide Axie to the mainstream where it has tens of millions of users, where it has countries where millions of people are playing it almost as their primary source of income. And you had to try to manage that system of how do we make this all work, right? Like what strings do we pull? How do we make sure this is operating? How do we keep it alive? I'm kind of curious, before we get into the new things people are trying, if you were to reflect, I know you're still building Axie, it's still alive, like it's coming back. But if you were to reflect, like, is there anything you would have changed, or like, what's the biggest lessons learned from last cycle in crypto gaming in general? Like, what doesn't work and what definitely is the most exciting that people are building on?
Axie was growing for basically an uninterrupted 18 to 20 months in the last cycle.
Yeah.
And so I think we played it quite well.
Incredible.
Right?
Yeah.
Obviously we could have, it would have been nice to have a more polished product, to have more token sinks. But it's like, what were we building? A lot of the things that we were building instead of that were probably the things that got us, right, to be the first off the runway, right? So you can always like look back and be like, hey, we should have prioritized this, but what would we have been prioritizing that over, right? And maybe those were the things that were needed, right? So we came to market with an MVP, right, that had a good enough core loop, that had a really strong community, that had beautiful art. Some of the economic loops, I think, obviously could have been tweaked a bit. Maybe been like, hey, like, take it easy, I guess. Like, take it easy, like, don't get too crazy. But guys, come on, this is crypto. Like, people are going to take it to the extreme, right? Like, you cannot, right? Like, you're not going to preach moderation. And, I think, and I even think that we did the bit, right? But people get quite wild in the bull. So, I mean, yeah, obviously, like, we believe we played it pretty well. Of course, there are optimizations, there are lessons, right? A lot of those lessons are being, right, around how do you balance the economy, right? How do you balance play to earn, right? How do you create token sinks, right? I think things like, what can we learn from like RuneScape and EVE Online, right? Like, because these are actually live, right, real money economies that have been running for 20 years. So I think like the next generation is like really taking some of these ideas, right? You have like Cambria, right? That's basically bringing like RuneScape dual arena in, right? It's like, oh, like could we have had something like that live for Axie last cycle? That'd been sick.
Yeah.
What would we have been prioritizing, while we were, over that while we were building that?
The hindsight, it's one of those things where it'll almost trip you up. It's like, what, you can't even think about it, the what ifs. But man, like I do have to give you guys credit too. That wasn't like a gotcha. I wasn't trying to catch you there of like, what did we mess up? I loved Axie. And I'm probably one of the players that was taking it too far. Like, I was one of the guys that I was like, oh, this farming is fun. Can I farm 100 of them? Oh, I can farm 100 of them. Can I start farming 500? Can I, I'm the one pushing it to the limit. So I know if I was
without that, right? Like the newspaper, the articles, right? Like the culture, right? The reserves of capital within the community, right? Like, may not have been sufficient, right? Without the mania to have been able to make it through the dark and hard times.
All right. Well, let's talk about then, as things are evolving, we're still early in the cycle. I love to hear that. And some of these, the early experiments are starting to show themselves. We already have, you were telling me about a game with almost 1 million active users monthly. Let's talk about them, dude. Like, what do these games look like? What are you seeing before we get into specific names? Are you seeing more airdrop style? We're seeing a lot of that from layer ones. Are we seeing more card turn-based? Like, give me a general overview. I'm so dumb about crypto games right now. I don't know enough. And I know there's a lot of people listening that probably feel the exact same way as me. They haven't been looking at this. They just need a lay of the land.
Sure. I mean, we have a couple theses for this cycle.
Yeah.
So first, right, like one of the things that's happening is these games that are built on top of Ronin, right, which is the chain built for Axie Infinity originally. Now it's the gaming chain, the one and only. these games that are built on top of Ronin are actually able to reactivate and tap into this core audience that we had from last cycle, right? We onboarded millions of people, 12 million Ronin wallet downloads, right? And this is kind of a dormant audience that is waiting for a catalyst. They're hearing that Bitcoin is rallying. They want to come back. They're like, hey, that was fun. Let's do it again. Right? It's like, it's in a couple of years. Like, what's going on? I want to meet my old friends. I want to meet my guild mates. Like, what's going on? Right? We're ready. And certain games are now rising to the moment, right? So we have Pixels, right? Pixels kind of like Stardew Valley, a farming simulation game built on top of Ronin. They migrated from Polygon. They're putting up good numbers on Polygon. They're around 5,000 DAU. Within 6 months, I think they migrated on Halloween, right? So it's around 6 months ago. They are now at 840,000 daily active users, right? They've been able to catalyze like a Binance Launchpad. What did they do? Here are some of the things that they did right? They immediately upon migration from Polygon to Ronin, they had a play to mint event, right? Where you're basically able to play, get tickets, and then use those tickets to mint NFTs, right? So this is kind of like a new model of, right, you're playing the game and earning the right or the ability to actually mint an NFT that has some utility in the game.
Okay.
And they also, right, immediately after that, like kicked off a play to airdrop campaign, where they were giving out decent portion of the token supply for an unreleased token. But everyone's like, hey, this game is actually fun. This game has traction. They believe in the team, right? So people start speculating, just like, right, like these airdrops that are happening, right? It's like you can coordinate behavior so much more precisely, right? When it's a game, right? It's like, okay, like harvest this material, right? And there's a leaderboard for cutting wood. There's a leaderboard for completing these quests, right? So they were able to target really precise behavior and get people addicted to the game. So much so to the extent that when they ended the play to airdrop, people were expecting, I think they had around 300,000 DAU at the end of play to airdrop. People were expecting, hey, okay, like, fun party's over. People are going to go back to their lives, but seems like people really love the game and they continued to grow, right? So I think there were around 300,000 at the end of the play to airdrop campaign. It's now 700,000.
So hold on. I want to pause you. 700,000 daily active users today. What was Axie at its peak? Like, I just want to get a scale of
around 2.8 mil.
2.8 mil, and that was crazy. Like, that was insane. We're already at 800, and this, like, maybe this is on some people's radars that are listening, but I got chilled 100 games yesterday on Twitter. Like, I can't tell which ones are. Is that the biggest game you think? Is Pixels?
It's the biggest game. These people who are showing, like, right, obviously they have bag bias.
Sure.
80%. Yeah, and I had my intern make the site. I'll send it to you after.
Please do.
80% of all blockchain gamers right now are on the Ronin network. So we believe that there are massive network effects to what happened with Axie, and that, right, there's this huge first mover advantage, that this might be a winner takes most space. And so to me, right, it's like I would be looking into the games that are doing well on the Ronin network. One of the things that people say is like, oh, like these are emerging market people. These are from Southeast Asia, right? Like South America, right? Like, are there people who are spending money? We actually just had a NFT mint a couple days ago for something called Kydro. It's like, you can think of it as like Azuki plus mechs with an actual game.
Okay.
And they just raised like $2 million in a paid NFT mint, right? So all these other games, they're doing like free mints, right? Like free mints trying to with whitelists and stuff like that. It's like, no, right? Like, we're actually able to sell out the paid mint on the Ronin chain. So yeah. So
we do have a game with like almost 1 million users. That's like flying under my radar. I imagine it's under a lot of people's radars. You also have games that are attracting $2 million of players that are willing to play even after the airdrop's done. Like, that's kind of crazy to me. Like, I knew the gaming was like building up. That has to be, it's surprising to me.
I think like the numbers are looking really good for, right, how early potentially we are in the cycle.
Yeah.
And for how, right, like how little this has escaped to the broader space.
That's what I mean.
While people are distracted with meme coins, Bitcoin ETF. And this is, I mean, to me, right, like I was here because I remember, right, the times when Axie was growing a lot. We're like, how come nobody cares about this yet? Like, we're growing at 500%, right? We're growing a lot, but people don't really care, right? It's kind of like a chemical reaction, right? It's like there needs to hit like a certain activation energy, and then everyone like pays attention at once.
They almost don't care until that first big win happens, and then everyone's chasing. What do you think is the catalyst for that? Like, what was the turning point for Axie? Like, what was it that it got mainstream attention, that it was on the news? I don't think it was that. I heard it from Delphi. I know I was pretty early to that one. Thank you. Shout out to the Delphi guys. But I'm trying to think of like when people really put gaming on their radars, because once that happened, it was the only thing people talked. It was the only sector people wanted. And if there was a new gaming project launching or raising money, it would sell out. Then you had Steppen come out, and you had all these things, and everyone's like, dude, this is it. This is the next one. Everyone's chasing Axie. Like, what was it that clicked?
So I would say like the big parabolic epicenter of awareness like started around May, June 2021.
Okay.
Axie had been growing for basically 10 months or even a year at that point, right? So I think it will take some time, right? Like, it'll just take some time. It'll take, some of these charts going vertical to, I think, to get people's attention. I think it will, the right voices. I think people are filling up, right? While it's still kind of like this, fill, then show, right? So I think like the people who know, don't want to necessarily, right, like give up the secret for now.
I'm breaking the rule then, because right now I'm shilling. I'm going to publish this, and everyone's going to be able to fill. I still haven't filled yet, so I know you've. I'm kind of reconsidering what the hell am I doing right now? All right, so we have some of these games bubbling up. Let's say these things, like let's say we do continue to get this momentum, 2-3 more months. Bitcoin keeps going up, ETH, ETF, right? All the bullish scenarios play out. If that happens and gaming starts to have its mainstream moment, do you think it's more important that games figure out how do we make this the most addictive game, or is the play to earn, balancing the economy more important? Or is it not even fair to kind of separate those? Like, how do you think about that? Is it possible to have a sustainable game, or are we always going to have these boom busts?
I think the boom and bust will modulate over time. But I think you'll still have like a cyclical thing, because these are real economies with GDP, right? Just like, it's impossible to have a perpetual economic cycle in the real world. It'll be impossible to have these Web3 games that are growing perpetually, right? You're going to have these variable economic cycles, because these games are more akin to countries and real economies than they are to games.
Yeah.
So it's like, right, like good governance, right? Either, right, like on the part of the founders, the communities that are helping to manage these projects. I think leading into the Web3 mechanics, right, coming up with new ways of modulating distribution of value. I think that's, where a lot of the optimization is for. And then it's like, what we found is that these founders, right, they're in tune with the community, right? Like they're not like afraid of going out there, leading, being in the trenches, over communicating, right? Like, that is an attribute that we found to be really, really important and indicative. I should have mentioned that too, like while we are talking about pixels before, right? Is like team is experimenting, right? Like with all these new Web3 mechanics, they built this game engine that allows them to iterate super quickly. Also, they have the pixel art, which makes it really easy to ship quickly. Mm-hmm. Then they also have a team that's out there talking to the community every single day and creating this really strong bond. So I think there will be teams, right? Like, so I think we have a thesis that there'll be like 2 buckets of types of games that will be successful. Games that remind people of early Axie, right? A team that's like experimental, right? Maybe has like nostalgic gameplay, but that doesn't have to be like super complex. And then teams that are very community centric. So that's one bucket. The other one that still hasn't necessarily been proven is like, can we integrate NFTs into IPs and games that already have millions of fans and users? Right. So, let's think about, I said the other day, right? Like something that excited the Hypetopia, I guess, community was like, I had a aha moment last cycle when Microsoft banned NFTs, right? It was like, first of all, wow, it was cool that Microsoft was commenting on NFTs and validating their existence. And then they were saying, okay, there's no NFTs in Minecraft.
First they hate you, then they fight you.
Yeah. So that was like, so Microsoft was saying that, right? Like, but what IPs out there, IP owners would be like, hey, like, we're down to have a new revenue stream, right? We're not so rich that we're going to turn away money. Maybe Microsoft is like that, right? Yeah. Their audience might be quite woke. But in the East, in Asia, people are more open to crypto, to these types of games. Real money games are already a thing. So I think that's another thing that's like ripe for exploration this cycle. We haven't really seen it yet, but that's one of the things that I kind of like keep an eye out for.
Okay, I want to explore deeper into this thesis. So we have bucket one, and that's what I think of when I think of crypto games. I think of crypto native teams that build these kind of novel experiences, games you've never seen, things like Axie, things like Prime that's coming out. It's these teams that build an entirely new crypto game. It's crypto from the ground up. No one's ever seen this. It's that's how it is. Then you have this second bucket, like you said, it's your second thesis, where you're bringing in crypto ideas or crypto assets into a game that already exists, into a game that already has millions of players. And that's exciting from an NFT perspective. I've also always thought it'd be interesting if you just had some game. There has to be a way for them to tap into the revenue of, let's say you have a Fortnite or a Call of Duty or a FIFA, and they don't even have to bring in the NFTs. But if they have some way that allows me just to connect my wallet, and if I want to do a tournament, let's say, of all the best Fortnite players, if we all connect our wallet, put in 0.01 ETH, and we battle it out for the prize pool. Like, there has to be some way. They're already doing it with their Roblox tokens, their Fortnite coins. They already have a mechanic where people are basically wagering and trading. It's already money. It's no different to have a token that you'd then call, this is the Roblox Ronin token. This is the Fortnite whatever token. I'm really curious if you think that's even feasible. Do you think that would ever happen, or is that gambling? It's like, it's going to be too taboo.
Yes, well, it's similar. It's RuneScape Duel Arena, right? You both like stake something, and then right, like the winner takes the money, and then there's like a rate, right? What RuneScape Duel Arena had that really good for balancing the economy. Actually, so effective for balancing the economy that they had to take it out of the game, not for legal reasons, but because right, people were losing too much gold, and some people were getting dissatisfied. But that's one thing, right? Is like when we think about balancing these economies, right? Like I think some of these things, like from RuneScape, looking at what burns value in EVE Online, right? So I think these ideas are really important. I think like, yeah, that kind of stakes, playing for stakes, right? I think that's one way to improve upon, this concept of, I guess, quote unquote, esports when it comes to Web3. I think that's definitely unexplored too. I was kind of a qualm that I had, is that it has so many like Web3 gaming esports tools and stuff like that that have raised money and are trying to get users, but I feel like they're not necessarily exploring that enough. That's not our core business. We're not necessarily going to be doing that. But I think there is something around that, and that is part of probably the answer to how we create more sustainability in these ecosystems over time. Kind of like, how like Athena, right? Like Athena is like basically made sustainable because of the
traders love to gamble.
Right? Yeah. So I think that idea, right? Like, this is innovation. So innovation is when you take like an idea that's working somewhere and just apply it to something where it's never worked, right? So I think like that is like just kind of almost even spitballing here, right? Like I think like that concept will be part of the answer and the solution around balancing these economies.
I love that analogy of Athena. They look at degens in crypto. They're always going to exist. They're going to keep longing coins and paying a lot of funding. All right, you guys are going to do that. We'll take some of that funding and we'll create another token, creates yield. Revenue passes on to people that buy into that system. Same as this. It's like you have if I go back to high school, for hours, I'm playing FIFA, I'm playing Call of Duty. If I then have an incentive to get better at the game, I'm wasting the time anyways. I don't even care if they're not stakes. I'm just going to keep playing because it's cool to hang out with my friends. But if we can throw, $20 at the game, then it like makes sense to spend a couple hours. Like, you don't have to, but it feels like such an easy opportunity where then the crypto game doesn't have to go out and say, how do we grow this to be the next big thing? You already have a lot of big games. Like just tap in, just figure out how to connect the wallet.
It's kind of like how you think about viewership, right? Like I made a controversial tweet the other day, right? It's like, why do people care about March Madness and the Super Bowl, right? It's like a lot of people who don't normally watch basketball and football care about this game because, right, it's like kind of social and you all like gamble on this, right? Like these are like the two biggest ritualistic gambling ceremonies in American culture, right? So it's like, people watch sports because of like making predictions, right? Because markets, right? So, I think that's one of the untapped, really unexplored opportunities around growing some of these games.
Definitely. Well, I hope it gets built. I hope someone listening out there, reach out to me if you're building that. I would love to invest. I know that Jihoz will probably also give you some advice on how Ronan can make it happen. All right, dude. Let's also kind of think about what these games can look like. Like you laid out what pixels look like. I know what Prime and some of these. You have the very simple looking games. You have the complex. Are you seeing more like AAA games get built? Things like Illuvium, things that look like ultra high graphics. This looks like it came from a traditional gaming studio. Or are you seeing more like card based? And also, do you think that both those can win, or are you kind of bearish or bullish on either one? I think that's also an idea that people need to get. They look at these games, and that's how they'll go into the tokens.
That was kind of like a meta, right? That was a meta raising money last cycle. Is like people aren't going to be like doing too much research, right? They want to know the team is
graphics good,
or the team has made games before and do the graphics look appealing,
right? Does that matter?
It actually is, in my opinion, right? So it's like when we think about theses, right? Why do we have theses? Because we have to think about the things that we don't want to do, right?
Right.
So part of our thesis, right, is that that's wasted energy and effort to try to make like a AAA game, because you're not able to iterate. You're not able to build in public because people are expecting something really good. So when you show something, it's got to live up to those expectations, because most people, right, are not familiar with what goes on to making a game. So you start like teasing stuff in the stuff like, well, that's not what the whip paper showed me. And you're like, no, like chill, right? Like, so I think that trying to make something that's super high fidelity in AAA actually reduces your ability to be experiment, to experiment, to be fast, to iterate. Like it's, I think, actually bearish, because you can't like ship and iterate quickly. Because there's this like expectation of quality, which is like almost antithetical, right? Like you have craftsmanship and you have like experimentation. You cannot be both. You cannot be an experimental craftsman, right? Like that's why Scott, maybe it's one of our core values, right? Is iteration, right? That means that we're not necessarily going to be craftsmen. We might even take heat for that, right? And this is a conscious decision. All values, right, are basically sacrifices. You're sacrificing something, right? So if you're going AAA, what are you sacrificing, right? You're sacrificing, in our opinion, speed, experimentation, iteration. So we're actually, those are the types of games that we don't want. We don't want these games that are going to take 4 or 5 years to release. I mean, we see it, right? It's already next cycle. Where are those AAA games? Have they gotten users? They raised a lot of money, right? But they're not there, right? They're getting outcompeted by Web3 Stardew Valley that looks like it's literally from 2003. So actually against, part of our alpha, right? Or part of how you win is by refusing to do the things that other people want to do. And it's also, right, that stuff is expensive, right? Like those teams, it actually takes a lot of time, a lot of people, and a lot of funding to build those types of games. But literally, it's never been proven that there's a market there, except from, right, there's a market for fundraising, but there's not necessarily a market for consumers or players or everyday people who use crypto.
God, it makes me think of now if you compare it to like things like DeFi, that's why some people look at the DeFi interfaces. They're like, what is this? How is this site worth, $200 million or $1 billion? It's like, no, that team just added 4 new features yesterday. Like we're building fast. We're shipping things.
Uniswap now looks a lot better than when I first saw it in December 2019.
Right, 2 buttons on a thing, maybe like a little square in the middle of your screen. And
there were no slippage warnings. My co-founder, right, lost all his ETH, I think, swapping to Loom. We were poor back then. It was hard times.
I'm glad to get your opinion on that thing, because whenever I see these games with the great graphics and everyone gets hyped, they have these big launch videos, sometimes I look at the tweet and I say, I swear to God, I saw that exact same launch video like a year ago. Is that that game is very good at...
we're still waiting, right? It's like we're still waiting. We're still waiting. Also, where is the core audience for these games? So far, the only proven at-scale core audience for these types of games is in emerging markets, Southeast Asia, LATAM, right? With supporting, right, collectors and whales from Europe, Asia, and North America, right? It's kind of, right, the archetypes. There's like kind of 2, right? There's like the collectors, there's the whales and the people who are buying the tokens at scale. And then there are the people who are using these games on an everyday basis, right? The people who are playing these games on an everyday basis, dude, they don't have the computer that's going to be able to play these super high fidelity games, right? Most of our users, right, they're using Android devices, right? So that's like one of the things when we talk to the studios that we work with, right? Like we have a very hands-on onboarding process. We provide a lot of support. We have a lot of wisdom that we share to these teams. And it's like, one of the things is like, yo, if you want our community to use your product, like it's gonna need to be like playable on these low-end Android devices.
Okay, so we have 3 theses out of the way. I honestly just I'm gonna let you riff on like what else do you have, right? We have the first one, we were talking a little bit about how games can look different, or the community focused versus the games that are going out there and trying to attach themselves onto something else. We have the second one, avoiding the things that are high graphics. I'm totally with you on that. What's another core kind of thesis or outlook? Because you have this view of what's being built. You have this 12 million wallets downloaded on your chain. Like, what else are you looking at there that you're like, that's where we want to focus? This isn't as interesting.
One of the things that we're interested in is, I think like one of the reasons that people fade Ronin is because people don't necessarily understand that it is actually part of the Ethereum ecosystem right now. And so there's kind of like, so to me, right, like I think one theme will be Solana versus EVM, right? This is like one of the showdowns that's happening in this cycle. The thing that we want to catalyze, and also that we believe is needed, is for gaming to be the EVM answer to Solana's meme coins.
Interesting.
So this is the showdown that we think is interesting. This is the showdown that we want to lead with the support of the Ethereum community, right? Like Ronin is architectured as an Ethereum sidechain right now. We are one of the larger burners of ETH via the Ronin bridge, right? There's a ton of like traffic that goes through that bridge. We're burning a lot of ETH right now. We are exploring, right, like how to basically upgrade our infrastructure to make, Ronin something more akin to a layer 2, right? Or to like implement solutions like ZK EVM to have additional chains built on top of Ronin. I think as the tech matures from just being like an EVM sidechain to becoming something more, to becoming something that's actually showcasing the fact that the EVM ecosystem is scaling, whatever way we end up in the validator, it's not up to us, right? It's also up to the Ronin validators. Whichever way that happens, I think we will start to be championed more by the broader Ethereum community. And I think that is actually a necessary step before like EVM can take on Solana. Because when you look at it, Ronin is actually the number 2 most used blockchain right now. More people are using Ronin on a daily basis than Solana. This is verified by Token Terminal. 1.2 million, 1.3, I think, right now. 1.3 million daily active on-chain addresses using the Ronin network.
Nutty.
And Solana, I think, is estimated at around 1.1. Let me just pull it up.
Also, pull up Base if you can. I'm super curious. Like, where does Base fit into that mix? People have been going crazy over Base chain. Tons of activity there. That's also a meme coin focus right now, really, until too much else gets built. You have Farcaster there, obviously, which is doing very well. Friendtech, which is going to launch their V2 later this month. That'll help their users. But I'm curious, like, where Base, because I've always viewed it right now as like ETH, you have Solana, you have Base, and it's just those 3 in a league of their own. That's wild.
Solana,
if Ronin's really up there.
So we have Ronin, 1.3 million daily active on-chain users. Solana, 949.4 thousand. Base, 358,700, right? So Ronin is actually almost 4x the number of
crazy
active on-chain addresses as Base right now.
So I can guarantee, I know there's going to be some people listening to this that are like, I'm not behind on gaming. I know what's happening. I think everyone is going to be a little bit shocked by that. Like that's
I'm here to bring the good news, right? Like I felt like this was a conversation that needed to happen.
100%, dude. I'm glad you reached out. That's wild, man. I cannot wait to share that on Twitter. I'm going to look up the stats and people are going to lose their minds on what is
Token Terminal, Nansen, right? Like these are the most trusted data providers and harbingers of truth in the industry, right? You don't have to take my word for it.
No, sure. Here's something I'm curious about with Ronin Chain. Is it only for gaming, or is there a possibility that DeFi applications, and we start to see SocialFi, we start to see some of the other sectors also move over to Ronin? I know this is kind of going outside of the scope of what we plan to talk about, but now I'm just curious, if Ronin has this many users, like why wouldn't some DeFi applications tap into that? I think we're going to be an exciting part of when a lot of these themes start to hit their stride later this cycle, things like SocialFi, how they connect to DeFi, there's going to be a moment where they all interact together, right? The first SocialFi app that can play with the DeFi exchange, that plays with lending, that plays with gaming is going to win. So can Ronin do all those things, or is it even?
This has always been the thesis for gaming.
Yeah.
The thesis for gaming has always been that gaming could be the go-to-market for all the other boring financial service technology that is associated with blockchains, right? Of course, we already have, right, like a DEX on Ronin, NFT marketplace, NFT lending, all the basically the DeFi tools that you would need for a game, right? That might expand over time. We have integrated with Gcash, the largest, it's like Venmo of the Philippines, right? Except 70 million Filipinos, 70% of their population is using Gcash. We have an integration for an on and off ramp there, right? So yes, you are basically thinking in the right direction, where our thesis is that Ronin can become the largest blockchain period, almost already is with just gaming. Imagine, right, as we open it up even more, that Ronin can become by far the largest blockchain, and can even, right, like become even more sustainable via, right, some monetizing on some of these other things, right? It's like, what if gaming is even like a loss leader, right? It's like, yeah, you can afford to pay the gamers because, right, you're monetizing, like, you know, further down the funnel.
Sure.
Right? That's how a lot of that's how a lot of Web2 businesses work, right? Like Uber paid the drivers. Uber lost money on the rideshare business for 10 years, right? People were also like, very anti-Travis, anti-Uber. Uber is now posting a profit, and the stock is at all-time highs.
Sorry, I can't even get over the fact that Ronin, like, it just completely changed my mental model of like what activity is happening where. No one is talking about that. And I know that you, like, in your circles, they definitely are. I know there are some people that are tuned into the gaming world and they talk about that.
It's a bubble. It's an echo chain. It's like an echo chain.
It's just crazy.
Right? I'm here to like get out of that.
To share the truth. I love it, dude. We're gonna break some minds on the timeline. All right. One thing I also want to do before we wrap up, now that we have some big ideas that people can start to chew on what the games look like, where are the activities happening, where Ronin fits in between Base and Solana. Here's what I want to do. We already talked about Pixels. What other games out there, if we could kind of rapid fire some of the most talked about ones? I tried to sift through that list. I got shilled like 100 of them. And I tried to sift through the ones that at least I was buying someone's bags. The other ones that I saw were like Prime. I saw Friend Pet on Base. What are the other most popular games that you're seeing, and any thoughts there?
Yeah, I'll try to be right, like balanced.
Yeah. Just
on Ronin, right? We got Pixels. We have Apeiron. We have Apeiron with around 50,000 DAU right now.
And what does that look like?
Apeiron, it's like it's actually more fast paced, right? It's kind of like, you think of it as like League of Legends, maybe, right? Like kind of like a MOBA, but it's only the battle, right? Like, okay. and they're super snappy, right? 2 to 3 minute matches. So Apeiron, we got Wild Forest, which is like almost like a mobile RTS, right? It's like 2 to 3 minute matches. You're basically building up a base, creating units, and then like fighting in these small little basically battles between two armies that are basically both built within the period of like 30 seconds.
Okay.
Mobile RTS.
Do you think that's one of the biggest mobile games? I'm curious, like, where that fits with.
I think it's floating around 15 to 20K DAU right now.
Okay.
These games, as long as they have over 10,000, right? It's like there isn't much on the elsewhere in crypto that has anything like this. We have Kydro. Kydro has a lot of hype behind it. The game is incoming. They just had a paid mint. The mechs look amazing. They just sold out 2 million. They just raised $2 million in a paid mint the other day. It's kind of like Azuki with mechs is one way to think about it. Yep. They have a mobile game coming out. They have a webtoon that already has millions of views. They have like a Web2 community that already like contributed to their Kickstarter. So Kydra, I think like Kydra is going to be super hyped. Their trailer has 8 million views as well. The IP just is gorgeous. The team is super like community oriented as well. So yeah, those are some of the games. Right, CyberKong's Play and Collect. Like CyberKong's the OG, right? Like the world record for the PFP floor. I think it hit like 200 ETH right last cycle. The CyberKong's migrated over to Ronin during the bear. Probably went under a lot of people's radars, but they're now on Ronin. They're killing it. They're growing. I think Genesis Kong floors are also like up quite a bit as well. So that's on running, right? Like otherwise, right? I think like Parallel, Friend Pet, Parallel. I've owned Prime since 280 publicly, and I think that they're doing a lot of really cool stuff. I think like the game is good enough, right? The game is good enough.
How does that compare size wise? Like how many users does Prime have, if you had to guess?
I don't want to out them. I'm not sure, to be honest. I think
I'm trying to look it up. I can't find it.
I don't think that they've made it public yet.
Okay.
But I think that it's a different audience, right? I think they have like more Western gamers, right? They probably have like higher spenders.
Sure.
Would love to work with them, to be honest, right? Would love to work with them eventually in some way. I think that they're doing it the right way. Like the game is good enough. The IP is really interesting. And the team is very community oriented. They're leading into the Web3 mechanics, right? Like it's kind of super complicated and mind blowing, right?
People love it on the timeline, and Neil loved it as well. A lot of the Delphi guys, and they're the ones that put me onto Axie. So like if they talk about a gaming project, I'm like, yeah, these guys know what they're talking about.
Yeah. So Prime,
interesting.
Anything else? Pirate Nation. So people are thinking with the rise of like L3s, right? Basically these app chains, it might be time for these like on-chain games to really start to percolate. So there's Pirate Nation. Friend Pet is also interesting. Like the idea of like a Tamagotchi, like that would be something that I'd love to explore a little bit more purposefully on the Axie side, right? What can we learn? Actually, that's something that I talked to the team about recently. It's like, here are the dots, right? Like what's interesting here? How do we Axify this in some way, right?
Yeah,
the cool thing about crypto, right, is like you can just everything is on GitHub, right? So, those are definitely. What are some of the other things, right? There's a couple of cool games on Arbitrum.
Avalanche or Arbitrum. Those are the two I was going to ask you about. Once again, I'm trying to get like an unbiased take. You don't have to say you love them. You don't have to say you hate them. I'm just trying to get a picture of like where are users.
The Beacon and Kuro Beast are really cool on Arbitrum, like the Magic ecosystem. So take a look at them. And then what was the other? Avalanche? Avalanche. They don't really have much right now, but they have something that's really interesting, which is what's the Korean game?
I'm not sure. I mean, you're the gaming expert. I guess a better question here actually is, what are Avalanche?
MapleStory. Sorry, had a mind. So MapleStory is kind of like this old school like platformer. Also like an MMO. It's like a kind of old school MMO. My wife used to play it. All Koreans used to play it. A lot of like people in the West used to play it as well. It's kind of one of the original MMOs, original free-to-play game too. Right? It's kind of like an innovative IP that people feel really nostalgic for. Nice, so I'm excited for that to come to Avalanche, right? Maybe hopefully like work with them in some way as well. Down the line.
Another thing I kind of want to, another angle to approach this is some people listening, they're never going to play the games. And a lot of people, especially that might listen to me or follow me, they just like to trade the narratives, right? They want to trade where are users, right? If activity's happening on Solana, I don't even want to buy meme coins. I just want to buy Solana. And some people kind of view gaming like that, of like, is gaming happening on Arbitrum? I want to own Arbitrum. If gaming's happening on Ronin, I want to own Ronin. Instead of giving like what you're bullish and bearish on, obviously you love Ronin, and I'm super excited about Ronin as well after talking about this. I guess just to better understand what's different about the way Ronin is building their games versus like the Arbitrum approach or the Avalanche approach. Like why, or even the Solana approach. Like how is Ronin able to do this and have these games with an insane amount of users, this community growth, versus like some chains, it's like they're kind of stuck in the mud. They can get maybe one game out there. What's different about the different approaches?
We've been building in this space for 6 years, and we focused that time and energy on the right things, right? So we were able to build Axie, right? And when we released Ronin is actually when Axie started to really go parabolic as well. And right, we built this core community, right? Community is the distribution mechanism of Web3.
Yeah.
So that is why the game partners, right, want to work with us, right? It's like the game partners that want to work with us are the ones that really care about distribution, right? They know that, right? Tech can be commoditized,
sure,
right? And the game doesn't even need to be the best game. The games that win are going to be the ones that have the best community and the ones that people actually play. That's also how you create the best games in Web3, because the more feedback you get, the better you're able to tune, right? So I think we're able to basically, right? Leverage this amazing core community that we've built up over the last 6 years to attract the right teams. And we're not like spraying and praying, right? Like we have theses, right? We're the first thesis-driven gaming chain, right? I don't know if you would, the other chains would tell you their theses, right? They're just like, hey, like we're gonna fund like founders that seem amazing, right? We have a very strong thesis-driven framework, and we're not trying to bombard our players with too many games at in the early stages. We're looking to work with the right teams, work with them in a super hands-on way. How do you talk to our community? How do you even like set up your Discord? How do you do play to airdrop, play to mint, right? How do you do these airdrops? Giving them a ton of advice that really we're the ones who have this executional and operational experience from 6 years. And so right now it's like very kind of like a curated approach where we're looking to work with the right teams that we believe we can back and that our community will love over time, right? As the architecture of the chain, right, scales like through whatever scaling solution we choose to use, as well as right, just we're going to open up the network, make it more permissionless. We'll kind of disrupt that more curated white glove approach over time, right? But history shows that whenever you release a technology to the world, a more hands-on white glove integrated, right? This is what Steve Jobs would say, an integrated approach beats a kind of chaotic open approach in the beginning. But then you have to disrupt yourself and open up so you don't get, because there are a lot of advantages to a more open model, right, in the long run.
Of course. Yeah, I love that comparison. Dude, I think we've hit this from so many angles. I absolutely love this. I'm hyped. I think I have a lot to now dig into, click around, play around in. I'm just excited to check out Ronin and see like why the hell everyone on crypto Twitter has been sleeping on this. I know that people are
everyone is feeding it, and it's time to basically call them out because the numbers speak for themselves, and now it's just like time to spread the news.
I love it, dude. All right, here's what I want to ask you before we wrap. Is gaming the biggest opportunity? I like how you laid out that last time it really was what onboarded people, and this cycle it's been meme coins, and I don't think meme coins are going to go away. Like we were joking before this, it's like I still love them. I just think that we're at a weird saturation point where meme coins can still be some of the best performers. But if you have 1,000 meme coins coming out a day, you're not going to have the same number of meme coins that are doing well. And so people are going to hit this level or hit some wall where they say, okay, if only 1% of the meme coins now are doing well, what are people not paying attention to? What's going to be the next narrative? And I think that they're going to look at what worked last time, which is gaming. Is gaming the biggest opportunity in crypto right now?
Meme coins, right? Like Bitcoin happening, that's all top of funnel for the rest of the industry. And it's the way that I think of it. You can think of like a cycle like this, or you can look at a cycle like this inverted, right? So it's like, I think like Bitcoin percolating, happening, right? Meme coins, this is all top of funnel. And then, right, the more complex, maybe, dare I say, more interesting, involved applications start to get more attention as people are like, hey, like I want to know, right? Like people actually do want to know like what else is going on in crypto. Like once they get onboarded via meme coins or like find out about Bitcoin, they want to find out what else is cool in the industry. They feel enthralled by the idea, and they also have the sense that, hey, like there might be other opportunities for economic freedom and crypto economic literacy elsewhere in the market. So yeah, I think like, I do think that this is part of every cycle, right? Like meme coins were a big part of last cycle. Were they the only part of last cycle? No. And that it's good. I love meme coins. I really think that they help. And a lot of those people, we're also hearing about it in the Philippines, right? Our players are trading meme coins or they're using meme coins to reactivate or get their family interested. And once they're like, already, gone from a normie, right, to someone who's interacted with the blockchain, right? It's also the good thing is this cycle, a lot of the meme coin stuff is actually happening on chain, right? So people are actually using the blockchain, and then they want to find out what else they can do on a blockchain.
Jihoz, episodes like this are why I do the show, man, because I had that exact thought. What is next? What can we be early to? How can we just find that next big play, whether it's 1,000x, whether it's 100x, or whether it's just a really fun game that no one else is playing yet? It's like there's some enjoyment in that. There's a win in that. But I do also think this is going to lead to some big wins for people. I appreciate you coming on here and This is a narrative shift. This is going against what some people believe is actually happening. I appreciate you coming on and giving us the alpha. Jihoz, it's been a pleasure, brother.
Awesome, man. Yeah, no, thanks for inviting me.
100%. Thanks, dude.